Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Naina Dargan, a dubbing artist for Doordarshan at the age of 10, a choreographer and cheerleader for the IPL Cricket Team Delhi Daredevils at 14, a primary school teacher at 21, a graduate from St.Stephen's College, Delhi, where she studied philosophy, and now a student of acting at the prestigious Film and Television Institute of India. Naina has worn many hats in the course of the last 26 years with one aim: to learn and live life to the fullest. Welcome, Naina, to this episode of Wings Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Naina, I met you. No, I shouldn't say I met you. I saw you for the first time, February early this year, when Asha and I got invited to a play being put up by the students of the acting school at FTII. And we received a nice, beautiful, PDF brochure saying that the students of the acting school of FTII is putting up a play, Hindi play called Virasat, which actually is Mr. Vasandev's Hindi translation of Mahesh Elkunchwar's Marathi classic drama called Vada Chirebandi, something which, as a fan and of Marathi theatre, which I have been fortunate to experience over the years, Vada Chirebandi is something which is etched deeply in the memory. And this was the Hindi adaptation of that, which was another curiosity. And in that play, you portrayed the role of a middle-aged to probably an older age lady who's just called Ai, which in Marathi is actually mother. And for the 2 hours that the drama unfolded in front of us, I think all of us in that cute little FTII theater were simply glued to our seats. And only when the drama ended, there was nobody in the room who could sit on their chairs but to get up and clap for all of you with a standing ovation, with you amongst the cast. Why don't we begin our conversation, Naina, if you can recite a dialogue of yours, which is probably close and dear to you, of the character that you played called I. Love to hear your voice. And though it's an audio podcast, people won't be able to see you, but I'm sure they will be able to see you in their mind's eye if they listen to your dialogue carefully now.
Sure, I would love to. I is a character that's very close to my heart. And what better way to begin this than to invoke her as a character? बेच देंगे सुनना कितना पुराना जाने कौन जमाने के गहने हैं तेरी दादी परदादी के जमाने के गहने सुनना केवल रुपया नहीं होता बेटी एक पीढ़ी से दूसरी दूसरी से तीसरी ऐसे नाता जुड़ा होता है अपने पुरखन के संग जब पहली बार इस हवेली में प्रवेश करा तो यही तेरी दादी जी को देखा था हमने कैसे लक्ष्मी की नाई जगमगाई रही थी हर एक गहने की बाबत बताई रही थी कौन गढ़ा कब गढ़ा कैसे गढ़ा पे तेरे हक का जो होएगा सो दूंगी
I was stunned when I heard this piece that you performed on the stage that day in the evening, and I'm kind of equally stunned. And as they say Hindi mein, rongte khade ho gaye is the experience I'm going through right now. So let me ask you here, Naina, as a student of acting, when you are trying to portray a character called I, what is it that as an actor you have to go through? And maybe it would help our listeners to first get a sense of who is this character I, and what's this drama Virasat, what's the context and the setting, if you can just quickly say, and then you can walk us through where and how you met the I in this play.
I would love to. It's a process that I've had some time to process myself. So, Virasat, as you've mentioned already, is a play by the legendary playwright Mahesh Elkunchwar. And this is a family, a Brahmin family, that has now lost its authority and hold that it had in the period before this. Uh, and now they're also turning to farming and they're going through losses. So this is the story of a huge Haveli, which is now seeing a not so good time, but it's seen better times before. And what happens to the people who inhabit this space that once used to be a beautiful Haveli full of riches? And so the family was also doing well. Uh, I happen to be the head of this family, and the story begins with a tragedy, which is that my husband has passed away. Tatyaji has passed away. And I have two sons, three sons actually, and one daughter. And the reason I kind of missed the one son is because he's that one son who kind of gets missed in the whole play, who is Chandu.
Yes, Chandu.
In fact, the first time I read the play,
Yes,
it's maybe I didn't pay attention or something. I actually thought that Chandu was the servant of the house. At
yes,
no point did I feel that he is one of the sons, because he's always seen working. He's addressed in the context of work. But coming back to the story and who I is, so I, and of course the play, finds itself at a very critical point with the head of the family, the patriarch, not in the picture anymore. The most critical dispute that happens in families, which is very common even today, is of property. What belongs to whom? And the word family gets questioned then, right? People who are so close to each other are now ready to go after one another. Their worst sides come out. And that's what the play is about. It's about a family that's coming together to mourn the loss of somebody, but in the name of mourning that loss, everyone is selfish. So it's a very modern story. It's a traditional family with modern problems. And where I features is that, and it took me a while to understand her in that manner, she's a very traditional woman. In fact, I remember the first time I read the script, I was quite scared to play I, because, in fact, I kind of backed off and told my friends that, listen, I have a feeling that this is the one character that I don't want to play. Because as an actor, you have a certain sense of vanity that, you know, I don't want to play a woman who's 70 years old. I want to probably play a character which has more dialogues, you know, because you have all actors kind of come with their own set of thoughts that I want this or I want that. And as our director would have it, he made me audition for two parts. One was I, and the other was Bhabi, who was a
yes,
kind of a comic relief in the play.
yes.
And I was very attached to playing Bhabi, and I really wanted to play Bhabi. But I think Sir did not make anyone read I but me. I was the only person in the whole cast who ever read I. And I kind of knew that I was going to be cast as I. And I think this is the right moment to kind of share it. The first time I heard, and I was the first person, it was announced as Naina will be playing I, there was silence for me. Absolute silence. My heart was broken into a million pieces because I just felt I'm going to be thrown in some corner of some room, and that's the character I'm going to be playing for 1 month. A woman who has barely any dialogues in the play. How is it a memorable character? How is it even a character? And we, again, this is not, it has nothing to do with the play, but everything to do with an actor and their own insecurities, because acting by nature is a job which kind of trains the person to be seen. You want to be seen, you want to be acknowledged, you want to do. So anyway, I remember I cried a lot. I went to my room, I got on the phone with my mother, and I told her I have to play this 70-year-old lady, and I don't even know how I'm going to play a 70-year-old woman, because Now, here at FTI, we're learning that acting is more internal than external. So, if I have to play a character like I have to understand her mind and her, and for the lack of a better word, her soul, which I would like to call her man. How does she think? How does her mind work? And for me to figure out how her mind works, I have to think like a 70-year-old. And what experience do I have of elders? I have the only experience I have is in terms of my grandparents. But even then, it's my perspective of looking at them. I've never been in their shoes. So I think I gave it a second read. And when I was reading the play for the second time, I had a moment where I was like, okay, you know what? This is a blessing in disguise because she is so different from you. You are extremely impulsive. She's very patient. You are somebody who believes in fighting and being very vocal. She believes in saying what is needed and where it is needed. She is a woman of experience. She's a woman who's seen generations come and go. She's experienced periodical changes in the country in her hometown. You're playing a woman who has lived life for 70 years and carries those 70 years inside of her. So just imagine the amount of things that can affect you, the things that have affected you, and a certain level of samta that we call a certain level of
Equanimity.
serenity that comes, equanimity that comes with an age of 70. And just when it hit me, like this picture kind of emerged in front of me, my eyes were filled with gratitude. My head was bowing down. I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity. Now let's do this. Let's give it a heart and soul. And I'm so glad that the text supported me so beautifully. The play is so beautiful that there were so many lines that I felt so privileged to even utter. Uh, whether it was something as simple as मैं क्या करूंगी इन पैसों का. Look at this woman who is so giving that wants to just take care of her children all the time. And mothers often are celebrated in cinema, often are celebrated in plays. But to enter the psyche of a mother who doesn't care at all about herself but only about her children, to actually become that kind of a person, it does something to you internally. It shows you two sides of a certain attribute. So, who you're seeing as a really giving person is somebody who's gone through a lot of pain, who has been told that your life now is your children. And it's not even told, like, told is a very modern sense of it.
Correct, correct.
That's where she was born. She was born to become a mother. She was born a girl and then became a wife and then became a mother. And ever
So
since she became a mother, she's not known anything else.
I'm reminded of a theater director friend of mine, uh, very close friend. He used to say very fondly that in my plays, not only I want my actors to find the character, but actually I'm waiting for the character to find the actor. It's as if probably in Virasat, I was waiting to find you. That's the feeling I got.
Absolutely. I think this is a feedback that I got even at the final performance of the play. And this was from the head of our department. He came up to me and he said, with your performance every day, I feel like the last show you found her, today you found her to a greater degree. And I could only say one thing. I said, sir, I think I'm still finding her because
Great.
she is so nuanced as a person. She is a very complex person, and all of us are. But this woman, like I think I should mention this one particular instance. We were doing one of the final rehearsals of the play, and there's a particular scene, a very critical scene in the play, where both of my sons, the eldest son and my middle son, they get into an argument.
Bhaskar and Sudhir, right?
Sudhir and Bhaskar.
Yeah, Sudhir and
Yes,
Bhaskar.
Sudhir
Yeah.
and Bhaskar, they get into a very intense argument in front of the children of the house. The whole house is gathered. Uh, and they're talking about property, and not just property. They count each and everything. And this is very common in houses. Like I have experienced it in my
Yes.
house. I'm
Yes.
sure people can relate to it. When you enter into a conflict, because family knows how to push buttons, right? Your closest people know how to hurt you the most. So my sons are making each other count. Like, remember the time I paid for your college? Remember the time I paid for your marriage? Your father didn't do it. I did it, and so on and so forth. And in this scene, technically speaking, the spotlight is on these two actors.
Correct.
The whole scene belongs to these actors. It's not my scene. I am in my room folding bed sheets.
Yes.
And I think it was during that final rehearsal, before this, all the time, I just knew, okay, this person is going to say something, and that's my cue, and I get up and get out. That's the basic I knew as an actor, that Bhaskar says, तो कहाँ से लाएंगे पैसे? And I enter something to that degree.
Correct.
And that's how it was going. I don't know what happened during this rehearsal. They were fighting, and one of them said that आई का ऑपरेशन के पैसे भी तो हमने ही दिए ना. And I don't know why a tear just flew down my eyes. I was completely shaken. I felt ashamed. I felt very useless as a mother and as a person. That look, my husband is passed away. My children are fighting. Have I been living for 70 long years to see this day?
Correct.
To see them fight and count things like these? And why, God, why did you have to give me this disease where they had to take me to to Amravati to get an operation done? All these thoughts just came naturally to me. I didn't have to bring them from somewhere, plan them from somewhere. I think because I'd been living in her shoes for so long. And one of the things I used to do very often was I was listening to a lot of Marathi prayer songs. I had like bhajan playlists that I would listen to in the morning, in the evening, in my room. It became a habit of some sort. And a lot of actors do these things. And before I tried them myself, I kind of thought they were crazy because I felt like, how is this going to help you in that moment? It does, because I don't know where that moment came from. I don't know how I started bawling all over the stage and not taking any kind of attention or something. I just couldn't help it. I felt really bad in that moment. I felt really small as I. And
Yeah.
then
And
what was beautiful is I got a transition. So I had to enter with the resolve that, okay, I need to resolve this issue. So I'm going to give up my property, whatever share
correct.
of property I have.
Correct.
And it just happened. Magically, that scene just happened.
No, I mean, I also sometimes feels that in intense moment like these, when you're emoting a character, and of course you have practiced and rehearsed for so long, uh, it's kind of cliche to say here that you become the character in that sense. But then, uh, well, honestly, we can keep talking on Virasat for as much time as we want. But I want to actually make a segue into something else. But I'm actually tempted once again, Naina, if at all, there's another intense scene that you portrayed in that drama, which like shook me in the audience seat. I was probably sitting in the third or the fourth row, uh, where Tatyaji, this is Ai's husband who's passed away, uh, his mother, who probably is in the 90s, Dadi,
Yes.
bedridden, unable to move even an inch, has lost her son. And she's hallucinating throughout the play as if her son's, which is Tatyaji's soul, is hovering around. And there's a scene when one night, that's the only time where the Dadi is actually shown moving from one location to the other. Otherwise, throughout the play, she's just stuck to one location in the bed on the floor. Because she actually feels Bappa, who that's, I guess, what she calls him, uh,
Yes.
around him. And she cries for him. And then her cries are only heard by Ai, who is in the room. And She comes out and she's the 70-year-old I sees her 90-year-old mother-in-law in agony and pain, and she realizes what she's going through. And then I makes an appeal to that soul that is hanging around, which is her husband. So can I make a request to you to say those lines?
Yes. हमें क्षमा कर दो, हमें क्षमा कर दो, हमें क्षमा कर दो, हमें क्षमा कर दो। ये हमसे कोई पाप हो गया है क्या? हाँ? कि तुम्हारे ही बाल बच्चे हैं, किसी के साथ कुछ बुरा मत होने देना, अपना मन किसी चीज में अटकाए मत रखना। सुनो, हमें माफ कर दो, हमें माफ कर दो, हमें माफ कर दो, हमें माफ कर दो, हमें माफ। One more thing about acting that I think, because I'm kind of reenacting my dialogues, I just want to bring that in. It's, often it's like addressed to us as a switch on, switch off kind of a thing, but it's extremely like driven into the moment. It's a very contextual piece. Like whatever you do in as an actor, uh, I know, like you did ask me to recite it, but I find it like, at least as of now, I find it very hard to just recite things. I kind of dip myself into that moment and go there.
I know.
But it's all very placed into that context of, okay, there's a before, there's an after, and most importantly, I as an actor, I draw a lot from my co-actor. Like even right now, when I was reciting these lines, I had to go back to that visual of my co-actor who plays my mother-in-law.
Correct.
And she was phenomenal in the
Yes,
play.
Dadi was like, she was too good. I mean, you can't be for almost 2 hours of the play in one position, lying on the bed, which is on the floor, and with no movement and no dialogue. And yet her presence is felt. But then let me shift gears here and ask you, Naina, the actor, who has to intensely portray every character that she chooses. There is, of course, so much of formal training that happens, I guess, which, of course, I presume it's equally important. But there is something that has to be a part of one's own self, isn't it? I mean, I'm wondering whether in some way that you will be a stage actor or a actor on the screen sometime was meant to be when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's the nature versus nurture kind of argument, right?
Correct.
That how much of what you pursue is something that you picked up at an early age
Correct.
and then practiced, or you're kind of gifted. We hear this word often, right?
Of course.
You're a gifted artist. You're a gifted artist. I do believe people are gifted.
Yes.
Because I've experienced some beautiful performances in my life, and I've been fortunate enough to work with some great actors too and see them just blossom in front of me and also on screen or on stage. Uh, when I was a kid, I think I have to give a lot of credit to my mother for this. I believe in the nurture too. Like if I'm gifted, it's because my mother never left an opportunity in order to train me. So I remember when I was, I think even before I was born, she would make it a habit to listen to Punjabi music. And I think this is a thing that they've told me. I don't know how true this is, but that as soon as I was born, usually babies take a while to open their eyes, right? So I was told that I was born with my eyes wide open, as if I was very excited to see the world and very excited to meet everybody. And maybe that's why they named me Naina, because I was just out and about to look at things. Uh, so my mother, actually, ever since I was born, kind of created this environment of learning around me where everything was play. Nothing was in a sense of abhi study karte hain, fir hum khelenge. Study was a part of play, playing was a part of play, everything was play. So if I've gotten up, getting ready is play. Today we're going to wear a costume, we're going to become a character. So she would lay out so many of these clothes, and she was very fond of dressing me up, doing my hair. And now we would call it like all actors have like a huge makeup entourage and this and that. My mother was a one woman army. She would do my makeup, my hair, my costume, everything. And then back in Punjab, because that's where I was born, she called a camera crew, and I have like this live footage of me of about 4 years where I'm reciting all these nursery rhymes of pitter patter raindrops and these stories and all songs from Bollywood. I'm singing them, I'm dancing on them, I'm doing puppetry in them, I'm turning my brothers into characters. And I had this whole room full of cousins and my siblings who were my audience. And they eagerly waited for me to read books with them. Okay, this is a potato, this is a tomato. And everyone was a part of my journey of growing up. And I think that's the most excellent way in which you can welcome a child into this world. Each and every person was a part of my schooling experience when I was growing up. So when I went to school, it was not very odd for me because in my classroom, where I was the teacher when there was no formal education and my mother was just helping me learn the alphabets and learn numbers, she would become a student. My father would become a student. My brother would become a student. So that transition through that kind of gamification made life in school very, at least in preschool, very easy for me. So, yeah, I think parents have had a huge role to play in helping me use my gift better and realize what my gifts are.
You know, again, going back to that Virasat evening in February this year, I think the show was at 6 p.m. and we were asked to be seated at least half an hour before. And I was fortunate to be sitting next to your mother, who had flown in from Delhi to watch your play. And I think the play start got delayed by a couple of minutes, and we were chatting, and she was busy taking photographs of just about anything and everything with her camera. And she told me, in memory of yours, which I'll just briefly mention here, that it seems when you were in your first grade or second grade school, your mother got a call from your teacher saying that please come to the school urgently. There is something which I have to tell you. And your mother like got a little scared, she said, and she went to the school and she met the teacher, and the teacher said, you know, आपकी बेटी ने क्या कहा आज क्लास में? मैं जहर पी के मर जाऊंगी. And the teacher obviously was scared, but your mother started laughing, she said, because she said, ask that little one, does she know what is the meaning of zahar at all? With me, she sits and watches TV all the time and all the characters, and she just picks up their lines and just recites them as if she's actually playing that out. So that was so cute and so wonderful. You know, Naina, I've been reading books ever since I know of myself. There's one which is kind of for me a go-to book for, I don't know why, but there's this beautiful, beautiful book called Illusions by Richard Bach.
Mhm.
And there is this beautiful quote or line in that book which has stayed with me for, I think, what, more than 20 years now that I have read the book for the first time. And the line goes, learning is finding out what you already know. Doing is demonstrating that you know it. Teaching is reminding others that they know just as well as you. We all are learners, doers, and teachers. Unquote. Now, other than the actor Naina, there is the teacher Naina, and then there's this perpetual student Naina. So why don't we take a walk with these two for some time?
Absolutely. In fact, this quote that you just read, actually, one of the oldest theories of knowledge comes from Plato, and Plato said something very similar. So, there's a simple story that goes where it says that Pythagoras comes to Plato saying that I don't know the Pythagorean theorem, and I could be wrong here, maybe it's a
Yeah.
folklore. And he says, but you do know it. He just said you need to remember it. So we are all born with perfectly with all knowledge. And even in Persian, the meaning of the word insan, the word insan means someone who keeps forgetting constantly and needs to be reminded. So this is a kind of existential state that we all live in. And I truly believe that even the simplest truths of life, no matter how many times you realize it, you need to be reminded. Uh, and this is going way beyond formal education. And coming back to the Naina, who's also a teacher as well as a student. So, as you mentioned when you were introducing me, I also became a teacher at 21. I chose the profession of teaching at a school as a primary school teacher at Shivnada School. And I often say this that I wouldn't be an okay actor, and forget being okay actor, being able to act also, if I weren't a teacher. Because teaching is, it has been one of the most enriching experiences of my life, because it, in the sense of teaching, I was learning. Most of the time I was learning about myself, or through my students I was learning about them and the larger world around me.
Let's hear some stories of
Oh,
the teacher, Naina, who had some fun with her students in Shivnada school.
so I was an absolutely enthusiastic 21-year-old who wanted to do everything. I wanted to teach them everything. So I would contact all my friends who were doing their PhD and their masters to send me their notes. And I often had this thing, like my mentors also thought that, okay, listen, she's a little crazy about this thing. I believed that anything could be taught to a child above the age of, like, not even age, I'm just going to say someone who has a basic understanding of language. Anything can be taught. You say gravity, you want to teach someone gravity, you want to teach someone sociology, you want to teach somebody psychology, philosophy. A child can learn anything beautifully and perfectly. All we have to do is create a situation, a context for them to relate to. So I remember getting notes from my really close friend in JNU to teach Mughal empire in my class. And I know it's not a story, but I just wanted to mention how, like, now that I think about myself as a teacher, there's so much that I wanted to do. There was almost a sentiment that everything that I have acquired by studying philosophy at Stephens, or simply by knowing the people that I do, just sharing it with more people. In terms of some fun and memorable stories, I have to mention some of my grade 3 students. They were absolutely unabashedly honest people that I've met, that they changed me so much. They made me so much more comfortable in who I am. Uh, I felt very comfortable in sharing my feelings with them. Say, for example, something that I really liked about our school was that our mornings would begin with a circle time, which is something I kind of miss, growing up. And it's kind of a little messed up that, when we're kids, we have all kinds of safeties, we have all kinds of people checking in on us, whether it's our teachers, our parents, our family. But somehow when we grow up, you're on your own. Somehow adulting means that we're not supposed to check in on each other. And I think that's kind of unfortunate, and we need to bring back that kind of tradition where I, as a teacher, I would very simply initiate a conversation on, okay, how are we feeling today? And we'd be sitting in a circle. And you don't always get the most pleasant answers. We as a class evolved from saying things like, I'm feeling fresh as a daisy, because something that their parents taught them to say in a class, and show that they know how to speak English of a certain level. They moved on to saying things like, I'm not okay. I'm not feeling good because someone called me a name, or someone slapped me unnecessarily, or someone stole my pencil, or my favorite book that I recently bought got lost, or someone can even share something like, ma'am, I am getting the recent brand of iPhone for myself because these were very privileged kids who I was teaching. And we'd have all kinds of discussions in the morning. In fact, the circle time would be such an enriching time that would just open things up. Uh, so, just a few fun stories again, coming back
Sure.
to the story bit of it. I'd like to share three of them. So, first is obviously coming from a lesson in English that I was taking. I was taking a class on adjectives. And just to open up the exercise, I wrote on the board, Naina ma'am is. Fill in the blank with an adjective, something that adds to me, is a part of my personality. Use it to
Sure.
describe me.
Sure.
So someone said, Naina ma'am is beautiful. And I get it. There are some students who want to impress their teachers. I'm not denying I'm not beautiful. I'm just saying you just want to say those things, right?
Sure.
There was another kid who said she's intelligent. There was one kid who said she's smart, she's pretty. And then I see this hand waving at me in the farthest corner of the room. And he shouts at me, Ma'am, ma'am. I said, yes. What is it? Naina ma'am is fat. And the whole class went, oh, मैम को तो फैट बुला दिया, अब तो मैम इसको डांट लगाएगी.
Uh,
And it's really interesting because it's a very privileged school. डांट वाट का कोई there's no concept of the teacher scolding or
correct.
beating somebody. Nothing like this exists.
Correct.
But the parents are so orthodox in their thinking that they've sort of passed it on to their children that if you don't do this, ma'am is going to scold you, ma'am is going to beat you. So that language is still not changed, no matter how much you try to change the system. But
Okay.
anyway, in that moment of silence, I realized that if I were to react egotistically right now, and it kind of did hurt me. I'm not going to lie, it kind of did hurt me for a second. But the good thing was I could observe that I was hurt by a comment and not by the child. And
Correct.
that is very important. Like when you're a teacher, and this was something my mentor, my principal kept telling me again and again, Nana, remember you're the teacher. So many times you'll have to forgive them for things they say, show them the way that they can do better, and that takes an incredible amount of resilience to observe what's happening. Observe yourself and observe your surroundings. Okay, what is this person struggling with? How can I help them in the most silent way possible? Because sometimes, children don't like to be helped very publicly, also. They want to feel empowered, they want to find their own path. So I remember in that moment deciding my reaction. So I said that, Suchit, that's a very honest observation. Thank you. Yes, I am fat, but so are you. And he very cutely said, no, I'm not fat. I'm just chubby. You're fat. And everyone started laughing. And I think after that, I went on to talk about the word fat for some time, where I was just asking, okay, we just did this topic called food and nutrition. What did we learn there? Fat is another word for obese. Obese is another word for overweight, right? Where are these issues caused from? Sometimes you might call somebody fat, but maybe it's not in their control. Like my fat is in my control. Obviously, I've not been taking care of my health, which is why I'm fat as of now. I'm going to lose some weight. I need to lose some weight. I need to feel healthy. But there are people who have diseases like thyroid, which is why, and then suddenly,
Yeah.
a simple comment can open up a wide variety of issues, which is why I also feel like the person that I am, I kind of derail into multiple topics. But as a teacher, that's a brilliant gift because a class of EVS is also a class in character, also a class in values, also a class in living peacefully in a society. And this is something one of my favorite teachers taught me, Professor Nanda, who I'm eternally grateful to. I remember this one conversation I was having with him at some cafe. And this is a place I had taken him out to because I had just become a teacher. I got my first salary. I wanted to take him out and express my gratitude to the person who's given me so much as a student. So he asked me that, okay, so Naina, now you're a teacher. What do you teach? What are you a teacher of? I said, I am a teacher of English, social studies, history, and dance at this point. I teach multiple subjects. He said, no, it's not the subject that they're going to fall in love with. It is your relationship to the subject that they're going to fall in love with.
Mhm.
So if you walk into the class passionate, still questioning, still curious about what you're teaching, the curiosity passes on. And this is not a performed curiosity, it's not a created, manufactured curiosity. You read up and you realize how little you know. There's a reason why Socrates, one of the wisest people on earth, the only thing he ever wrote and committed to was, all I know is that I know nothing.
Correct.
And it's the most humbling thing to realize, even as a teacher, that no matter how much I teach, I still am on the lookout for, okay, what is teaching? Where am I coming from? Is it like we pass down knowledge from one position to another? Where is this going? Even you have questions about the subject in the latest kind of fact checking that you do. So there are questions on multiple levels. I think teaching kind of goes wrong when it becomes ideological, when you become rigid. One of the things that teaching did teach me was that I've got to be extremely flexible. So if I don't know something, I have to admit in the class I don't know. It was one of my greatest victories as a teacher in my class when my students would ask me something and I would say, you know what, I actually don't know. Let's look it up. So they realized, okay, so this person also doesn't know. So it's okay to not know. But then they also had this question that if you don't know, how are you our teacher? What is it that you're teaching us? They're brilliant, that way. They
Yeah,
have all
yeah.
kinds of questions.
But
And
then,
this did put
as
me in a fix. I was
as
like,
a yeah, as a teacher, uh, at Shivnadar School and some of the other places that you have taught into, there is a student in you which took you very recently to a 10-day Vipassana program.
yes.
So, what went in and what came out?
What went in and what came out? Uh, what went in was somebody who was very much taken in by the storm of her life, unable to disassociate from the drama. And remember how I said when I was a teacher, I could observe that I was hurt by the comment and not by the child? But this was a person who was not able to differentiate between where does myself end and where does another person begin. So if someone would say something to me, it would stick onto me as if I had Fevicol all over my body. So any little comment was enough to kind of make me feel bad about myself, which I also think is a professional hazard, since now that I'm an actor, anything anything is specifically about my appearance is like, okay, wait, am I not going to get my job because maybe my jawline is not perfect? And this kind of funny sometimes when I think about it, because here I am, this person who studied so much, this person who has so many interests, and suddenly you're reduced to, okay, no, you don't fit the look. But anyway, that aside, so all these anxieties of, okay, how am I going to make it in the industry? Do I have to look a certain way? Or maybe no, maybe if I am a good enough actor, I will get work. So there was a lot of attachment to the idea, a lot of anxiety to the idea of becoming a movie actor. And then I walked in, and of course, Vipassana has its own process. And I remember this one particular day when I was meditating, it occurred to me that where did this idea of acting come from? Who did your mother tell you to become an actor? Did your teacher tell you to become an actor? Nobody did. One fine day, a little girl was watching films on her television and said to herself, that looks fun. I want to do that for the rest of my life. That looks like a lot of fun. And then, of course, later on, she grew up and she realized, oh, they make money. They make so much money. That's an added benefit. I want to make money. Yes. Oh, they look so beautiful. Everybody loves them. I want to do that. And then I realized this particular area of job, acting, obviously through films and cinema, and I am a film student, uh, we are influencing society in multiple ways, whether it's constructive, not so constructive, or absolutely just for the sake of entertainment. Although I do believe there's nothing that is just for the sake of entertainment, each and everything leaves an impact on you. Visuals are very powerful, and we live in an age of images where images are all over social media. So I remember asking myself, what are you here to do? You're here to have fun, yes. And by say here, I mean I got very existential. What am I here on earth to do? I want to feel happy. I want to feel fulfilled and content. But most of all, I want to be rid of this I, that's constant chattering I that constantly wants things. There is no moment where it's going to say, you know what, I'm okay. And when I did closely look into my life, I was like, okay, one second. I have very supportive parents. There is no pressure from their end that I need to work. This is something that I've chosen for myself. So, in a way, I felt that, you know what? I'm not going to be attached to the idea of becoming an actor or becoming anything for that matter, because everything is so temporary. The money that will come with it, anything, even the sorrows that will come with it, not just the joys. And I could see that if everything is so temporary, why have I prolonged it in my head? Whether it's my past, anything that's hurt me, it keeps getting prolonged by coming in the present. Or my future, which will also be equally temporary, by fixating so much on it, I've made it longer. So I call it something like jumping the axis of time. So the moment I try to go either forward or backward, I'm causing myself a lot of misery. And now, of course, we live at a time where people talk so much about mindfulness, this, that. And mindfulness is great. And for me, mindfulness is just this, that right now I'm here in this podcast with you, talking to you in a conversation with you. This is my reality. And I must accept it. I cannot go beyond it. Here I am. And I'm happy in it.
So yeah, what I hear you saying from your Vipassana course is kind of accepting everything that comes your way with both the hands and kind of embracing it. Uh, Naina, this conversation can go on with somebody like you, but we are on a podcast. We are on a times, boundary. Let me end by asking you, what is it that Naina would like to tell Naina at this stage in her life?
Wow, that's very important question actually. I would tell myself that at this point, you are the maker of your life. The moment you step back and take the position of somebody who does not have control of their life and is simply going to accept whatever is happening, given to whatever chattering of the mind that happens, you soon become something that you're actually not. The chattering of the mind are all the little insecurities, all the little things that want to stick onto you. But the moment I can observe them, like I observed in my past, I'll watch them leave me and I can proceed in a clear direction towards, again, a very simple goal, which is to learn and actually live life to the fullest.
Nelson Mandela once said, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I guess these words, though belong to him in many ways, they are all parts of us too. So all I can say, Naina, I believe you know that you are a master of your fate. I know that you are the captain of your soul. Now, protect this
Yes.
beautiful soul, nurture it, let it be what it wants to be, and Well, I look forward to your next performance. Whenever that happens, I'd love to be there
Yes.
to cheer you and to clap for you. So this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation, Naina. Just want to hear from you. What has this experience left you with?
It has been quite a journey. It's almost like I have been on a train ride from my childhood to something very recent and then going through my teaching years. It's been a very wholesome and heartening experience. I know our viewers might not be able to see it, but I've cried multiple times in the course of this conversation with you, and all happy tears. And I believe that if a conversation can move you so much that it drives you to a point of crying, then it's definitely soul stirring and something that's going to stay with me for a while.
Wonderful, Naina. Thank you so much for your time. Wish you good luck. Take care and
Thank
stay
you.
safe. Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75 at gmail.com. Thank you.